They told me you were assassinated in Hong Kong.
Yes, this is my second life.
You only live twice, Mr. Bond.
Amazon just bought James Bond, and I have a lot of thoughts about this. But before we really get into this video, I want us to do an exercise. So close your eyes with me. All right. Now, think about where James Bond is at right now. Think about everything in the series that has led us up to this moment. Think about everything in the world that had to happen for the series to even exist. Go back all the way to the start of the universe and think about how it all led to James Bond. The first spies, espionage, death, love, war, heroes, villains, and the morally gray. Now think about the future of James Bond and all of the possibilities that there are to explore. Topics in the future that James Bond will have to deal with. Where will the future of cinema and a character like James Bond evolve? So many possibilities and so much potential. Now, open up your eyes. James Bond has been bought by Amazon, whereas the beginning of the brand, it has always been owned by the Broccoli family who owns Eon Productions. This could be the end of Bond, or it could be the beginning of a new era. The reason a lot of people are having doubts about the future of the series is because we have always relied on Eon to deliver great films. And to this date, there has never been a bad Bond film. No matter what people say is the worst Bond film, there is quality in each of the movies, and it is the name Eon, which means everything or nothing. And this company and family have really thrown everything that they have at the series and taken Bond everywhere, which has paved a future for the series to be interpreted in many different ways. Each actor has had their own interpretation of the character, which has changed and moved with the times while keeping the relevance of the James Bond character. The future holds the possibility for a more goofy Bond like Roger Moore or a more serious Bond like Daniel Craig. And as long as Amazon doesn't change the character too much to the point where Bond is unrecognizable, then I believe that the series will continue in a positive direction. With the Craig series, being a Bond fan was hard because it took a lot of patience, and I have to admit that seeing Marvel and Star Wars get so much more productions made me jealous in some ways. But also in other ways, I could see how these series became less special because of how much content was not high quality. The Bond series has the potential for more. After all, there's so much in the series that has not even been explored. Now, should James Bond be turned into a cinematic universe? And for anybody that is saying that the series should not be turned into a cinematic universe, I hate to say it, but it already is, and always has been. Maybe not in the way that Marvel is, being so heavily interconnected. And even Kevin Feige talked about how when he made the Marvel movies, he heavily studied the Bond series to create a cinematic universe to be able to create a prominent franchise like James Bond. And the Bond series has already had stories that have explored other characters, like the Moneypenny Diaries book series. Felix Leiter, who, if you don't know, was a CIA agent within the series, who had his own comic book series. And even GoldenEye Rogue Agent, which was a video game about James Bond dying, and you play as a rogue anti-hero in a world where two villains, Dr. No and Goldfinger, go to war against each other. And I have to admit, I was a big fan of the futuristic aesthetic of this game, and the Matrix characters helped create the look of the world in this game. But personally, I would love to see another series like the Phoenix Trilogy of PS2 games, like Agent Under Fire, Nightfire, and Everything or Nothing. Original Bond stories in the video games that bridge the gap between the movies. Now, as far as TV shows, we've already had Fleming, The Man Who Would Be Bond, which is about the creator of James Bond and his adventures that influenced his creation of 007. We've had a bunch of documentaries like the Hulu one about George Lazenby and his life and his unusual journey to becoming 007. We've had a James Bond Road to a Million game show, which in my opinion was terrible. It had nothing to do with James Bond except for the real life locations, and there were barely any stakes. I would much rather have watched The Amazing Race, if I'm being completely honest. But as far as characters in the James Bond universe, I wouldn't mind seeing a Felix Leiter miniseries or a couple other shows. Maybe even one starring a villain or exploring past characters like Honey Rider, because her story is interesting and it's barely explored in the film. And if it was more explored, it would be just a very dark but interesting story. And I don't think there should be any James Bond adventures in TV form, though. It would take away way too much from the films. But maybe just some mini adventures to keep the fans occupied. Now, within the Bond series, there are over 800 characters. And the fact that many of them have been used only once, except for a couple exceptions like Jaws, is mind-blowing to me. This underutilization can be a bit infuriating, but the mystery and fate behind some of the characters also keeps them special. So I really don't think there is a need for too many miniseries. I don't think it's necessary to have another James Bond Jr., but I'm not against it having some more things geared towards kids. After all, they really are the future fans who will eventually keep the series going. This is why they need more video games too. And through the late stage in James Bond's life, there were really no toys or anything besides Hot Wheels or one Lego set. It would have been cool to have some more merchandise. However, at the same time, I don't want them to oversaturate the market. Quality over quantity. And I mean, that's been what their thought process has been throughout it. They've just been putting out a couple quality items, and they're nice, but I think they could put out just a little bit more. Although I understand why the series does it, because there are a lot more fans that aren't extremely rich, but still want some items. Because like right now, the only thing I could think of that's interesting to me at least are these board shorts from Oliver Brown, which is like a luxury brand, but even I'm not gonna pay $500 for some swim trunks. Now, personally, for the next Bond film, I believe that we need just a traditional Bond film. Go back to the roots and see why certain films are beloved and popular and why others are not. Make another classic like Goldfinger. We haven't had a true traditional Bond film since the Brosnan era. And although I love the deconstruction of the Bond series in the Craig era, I would just love to go to the theater, have some popcorn, watch a badass Bond film, and leave the theater feeling energized. Like I could go out and do anything. Because that is what the series is about. At the end of No Time to Die, M summarizes the entire point of the series perfectly. The function of man is to live, not to exist. I shall not waste my days trying to prolong them. I shall use my time. And that's the entire point of the series. To be a man like Bond, flaws and all, taking action to make the world a better place, fighting for a common good against evil forces, seeking adventure and striving to be your best, rather than just simply existing in life. Every main character in the Bond series exists in this way, independent of the character of Bond, but also striving to be their best. These themes of what is your life's task? How are you striving to achieve this? I think they should continue with having deep themes like this. The worst case scenario for the Bond series is that he is going to become a hero similar to Indiana Jones or Captain Jack Sparrow, which are great characters, but they weren't able to reach their full potential because of corporate greed. Or they completely change the character of Bond or another character beyond recognition. Or they'll just continue adding a bunch of shows that are boring, uninspired, don't have any depth. The closest thing that we have had to a James Bond TV show so far has been the Heineken ads and other ads. And what people don't want is a corporate film, something that feels unintentional or where the subtlety of the last series worked so well. And I don't know if we will ever get the writing similar to No Time to Die, for example, where Bond leaves Madeline Swan at the train station and she clutches her stomach because she's pregnant and he leaves. And us as the audience, we don't know that until a second viewing. Or where Bond says to Vesper in Casino Royale that she isn't his type. She says smart, and then he replies back single. And you could see just a very slight change in her face, because later on you figure out that the truth is that she really isn't single. Now this intentionality in the writing and subtlety is something that you just don't get in or any other mainstream series. Most series have everything taken at face value, and there isn't anything beyond that. Good is good, bad is bad. That's what makes the difference between the James Bond series and a lot of these other series. And that's what makes these movies so rewatchable. Now the best case scenario is that we get a badass new Bond who has all the traits and characteristics of a good Bond and a great series of new movies. The Bond series is a series within a series, and I want to see high quality video games. I would love to see if they decide to make a TV series, to make it good, have a little bit more merch, and I want intentionality behind the films. Treat them like art, not like content. I want to see Bond at his lowest, surviving off the bare minimum, and I want to see him at his peak, and I want to see him win. I'm excited to see what they have in store and what their ideas for the future of James Bond is. And James Bond has been ingrained pretty much in our culture in movies like Looney Tunes Back in Action, where Timothy Dalton is basically James Bond in that movie. Pink Panther, they have reference to James Bond. Even Andrew Tate says he's James Bond, which
People have
I don't know about that. There's body language analysis videos. There's videos that'll analyze each of the films, each of the games. There's just so much to this series. There's the original Fleming novels, and there's tons of other novels outside of that with their own interpretations on the characters. So there's just so much freedom for the future of this series, which I'm excited for. I would love to see, too, in the future Bond movies, some more cars besides the Aston Martin. I love the Aston Martins, but it would be cool to see a little bit more, because James Bond hasn't only driven Aston Martins, he's driven BMWs, Lotus, Porsche. It'd be cool to see some more luxury cars. However, I'm not saying get rid of the Aston Martin, I'm just saying bring in some more variety. I also think they should bring back the P99 instead of the PPK. Now I'm just getting a little nitpicky. Oh, also bring back Judi Dench. I think that would be cool. If you could bring back James Bond, you could bring back Judi Dench too. She was the best M, and I feel like she just has a good passion for the series too. That would be a good series. An M series with Judi Dench. Definitely, I would definitely watch that. Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson have done just such a great job within the series, and I'm excited to see what they have in store for themselves too. I know they love Shakespeare and stuff like that. Now, what exactly does the James Bond series have to do with my YouTube channel? What relates back to my YouTube channel? Because after all, this is a travel channel. It doesn't even make sense to have James Bond. Well, I've already covered a video on the James Bond lifestyle, and in my life, I have tried to replicate that. James Bond just has been a personal influence to me, to travel, to live life to the fullest, to stand up against things that are evil or things that are bad. And he has taught me to be confident in situations where if I didn't learn that confidence or didn't emulate it in some way, I might have handled it differently. Back in 2015, a friend of the neighbor had drowned, and we heard screaming, and it was at 12 at night. And we went over there and we saw her laying down next to the pool, and I went over and did CPR on her, and I assured everyone, I told them I know CPR, let me handle this. and she was life flighted out the next day. The doctor said that if I didn't do that, she probably would have died. And that's just one example in my life. Even doing things like in college, taking sailing class, doing things like that, and living life to the fullest, and going on all of these adventures, traveling around. A lot of these have been taught through the Bond movies, and I have to thank the series for giving me that ability to be that person. Now, if you liked this video, I have another video on the James Bond lifestyle. I'll leave it linked at the end of the video. If you also like more Bond content like this, I would recommend you check out Alvin Dyson or the Bond Experience. They both know what they're talking about. Also, if you like travel content, or you just like my voice and you want to hear some more of me talking, that's all for this video. Follow, like, and subscribe for more content like that. Comment down below also what your favorite Bond film is. Comment down below how Bond has influenced your life, or your opinion on where the Bond series should be taken. What is your ideal Bond film? Let me know down below. Thank you.